Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, it's amazing to see how something so morally simple can get truly, truly complicated. And guess what? If you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean that you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals. We pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. You know, if you like how we do things, I'm going to assume that you do because you're listening. And if you're, keep listening, but also subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, gives you a 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere. Places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. So, go check us out. You can give us a thumbs up and all that fun stuff. And plus, we're on YouTube. So if you can find and subscribe to us there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on the social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, TikTok, Threads. I'm losing track. Blue Sky. I'm sure there's a few others, but we're there in the seats for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because guess what? If we love to watch it, write about it, and talk about it, we love it when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please do us that ultimate kindness, come on by and pay us a visit. Boy, oh boy, we got a fun one for you today. Friend of the show, writer-director Jaime Kastner has returned with his new film, The Spoils, yet another fantastic documentary that's it's a deep dive. It really is a deep dive into sort of issues around arts provenance and restoring work that rightly belongs to people, especially after the war and everything that happened during World War II, with the Jewish people getting plundered of all their value and all their artwork. And this specifically is the story of as an attempt to honor a Jewish art dealer, Max Stern, who had a healthy collection, but things keep getting botched and things keep getting overlooked and things keep happening, and it really highlights just sort of the complexities of proving art provenance, especially in the hollowed out wreckage of Germany in World War II, but also the undercurrent of anti-Semitism and the undercurrent of just not wanting to talk about the war that really still is prevalent today when it comes to going back and trying to honor someone like a German Jewish art dealer like Max Stern, who eventually escaped the war and moved to Montreal and became Canada's most successful art dealer, but couldn't quite restore all that he had lost, especially from the Nazi looted art. And Jaime, in his deft and always fantastic way, dives into the world art market and really looks at sort of the failures of what happened in the city of Düsseldorf at their museum as they try to sort of mount this exhibition in honor of Max Stern, but also just how lawyers and issues of proof and rights and so many layers and layers of complex issues can come out just by trying to restore a painting to its rightful owner, which, again, feels simple, especially in the wake of the Holocaust and everything that happened therein. But Jaime really definitely shows that this is a very complex and really quite fascinating story that no one's right, no one's wrong, but it does spark up a lot of good conversation, which at the end of the day is what a documentary film is supposed to do. But as always, I had a blast sitting down with Jaime to talk about the film and so very much more. But like I said, you should go check out The Spoils, which is playing at select theaters. It's going to be at the I know it's hitting some cineplexes. It's going to be at the Hot Docs here in Toronto. It's going to be in Montreal for a showing. It's going to be in Ottawa. And then eventually, I do believe it's either going to be hitting video on demand or it's going to be going straight to the documentary channel. So if you don't catch up with it right away, there are a myriad of ways to watch this fantastic and fascinating film, which really, again, dives into uh, sort of another layer of war that we never really think about because, again, like I said, we know about the tragedies and the horrors of so many Jewish people who lost their life during the Holocaust and everything that happened therein. But it's to see sort of the rigged game that the Nazis presented Jewish art dealers and the Jews in general in terms of really robbing them all blind and really sort of taking the country for millions, if not possibly hundreds of millions, of worth that a lot of which have still not been restored to their rightful owners. But watch The Spoils. It is a fascinating documentary, once again, from, like I said, one of Canada's best documentary filmmakers, Jaime Kastner. And, well, he had fun talking with me, which is never a bad thing. So, like I said, go to The Spoils, enjoy it. But first, enjoy our talk with Jaime Kastner, because, as always, it's a darn good one. Well, Jamie, as I like to say, you are the hardest working man in Canadian showbiz, in Canadian documentary show business. But I mean, just thank you again for the time, man, and just congrats on this movie, man. It was absolutely fascinating.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, it is. Who would have thought all this was still churning away, eh?
Well, and that's one of those things. I'm like, when I was watching it, it was like I had empathy, I had anger, I had cold, hard logic kind of staring me in the face, kind of all at the same time. Just sort of the realities of it all are so unbelievably messy that it's most people have no clue other than outside of seeing Monuments Men, which I mean obviously which you reference in the film. But I guess my first question is, walk me through, I guess, the first time sort of the name Max Stern and this whole story kind of came into your orbit.
Okay, absolutely. Sorry, I'm just stopping notifications here. The I had in the wake of my 2019 film, which we spoke about, There Are No Fakes. Thank you again for that conversation, and which was, of course, about what has since turned out to be been revealed to be the world's largest art fraud scam. Uh, anyway, in the wake of that film coming out, an old journalist, academic pal of mine named Sarah Angel, who had been came to me and said, had seen There Are No Fakes, had seen this unlikely brawl going on in the art world portrayed in that film, and said, "Have I got a story for you?" essentially. And she drew my attention to a story that she had been covering for some time as a print journalist and also as an academic, which is Max Stern, basically the collection of Max Stern. Stern, of course, I the name vaguely rang a bell, but Max Stern was a German Jewish art dealer whose a gallery whose family who was forced to flee during the or just before the war in 1937 after having had his family's gallery in Düsseldorf liquidated in a Nazi-approved Jew auction, as they were known at the time, and then he had to pay the proceeds to the Nazis to secure exit visas for himself and his mother. He wound up penniless, interned in Canada during the war, and then somehow miraculously started afresh and rose to become, one of the country's largest art dealers by the time of his death in 1987. Um, he had no heirs. I mean, that is to say, no children. And the restitution project in his name, conceived of by the foundation in his name, has become the most successful such effort in the world. And yes, but all of that and some of the brawling around it was exposed to me by Sarah. It was by Sarah Angel, and I said, "Yeah, you're right. This is my kind of story."
And I mean, I'm so glad that just as we tracked it all, I kind of really got a sense, I got a sense of appreciation of how the system was rigged at the time. It was like, okay, it's illegal for you now to be an art dealer. You have to sell all your stuff. No, but now you have to sell it at our gallery. Then you have to pay us, and now you have no money. Oh, and by the way, we just froze all your assets.
Well, this
It was such a rigged system that people like the layers of it is sort of things that people really don't quite understand.
It was, yes, this too was a revelation to me. I mean, everybody has at least a broad sense by now of the Holocaust
Right.
and the human toll. It's less known is that sort of what preceded it immediately and what led towards it, which is the Nazi era, 33 to 39 in Germany. And it is fascinating and eerily familiar in many ways to our present time to see the progressive removal of rights from cordoning off and segregating of a specific group who prior to that, of course, the Jews had been the most integrated in Germany than they had been basically anywhere for a couple of millennia prior to that.
Mm.
They really considered, as is known, the German Jews consider themselves German first. Many were integrated. They were
Yeah.
not particularly religious. They were involved in all aspects of society within the bounds of certain restrictions. But Yeah, anyway, to see how the stages by which exactly year after year, just looking at it through the experience of Stern, who is, strikes me as a kind of average middle class businessman trying to make his way in the art field. How indeed this month you can't practice your profession anymore. Next month you can't sit on public benches anymore. It really is. There's something new and eerie about this topic about which we all assumed we knew everything already.
Can you walk me through sort of, I guess, your investigation of sort of the process of restitution? Because I mean, even as we're seeing it in the film, and then we see the cancellation of the exhibit, I mean, in my mind, at first it was like, oh wait, are they canceling it because they're liable? Are they canceling it because, oh wait, this is just anti-Semitism without saying anti-Semitism? Like, there's so many different ideas that are sort of flowing through my mind as a viewer as we kind of see this. I can imagine sort of getting into that investigation and sort of really tracking provenance on so many of these pieces of art can be mind-boggling, not just for you as a storyteller, but for us as a viewer as well.
Yes, it's a tricky, thorny, nuanced topic to delve into, and it took me a while to get my head around it, and then indeed to try to figure out a way to make this not all seem too technical and boring for an audience because once you understand it, it's of course anything but. And just for quick background, I mean the Stern project decided. So these are art historians and investigators led by a fellow named Clarence Epstein out of Montreal, who about 20 years ago learned about this lost gallery and this forced sale in Stern's past, which was not something which by the end of Stern's life in the late 80s he was still banging on and on about. He became extremely successful in Canada. Uh, um, but so they only discovered by chance this foundation members, his heirs, that there had been this Stern gallery in Düsseldorf. It was discovering that and this auction 392, it was called, done out of a gallery in nearby Cologne at a still existing, excuse, not a gallery, a still existing auction house named Lempertz. Of course, the heir to that company is also in the film. It was only discovering about this auction that they decided to make the foundation's main effort to be restituting the 400 odd paintings that were in that exhibition. And doing so, of course, and telling that story sort of pulls the lid off this still raging war of involving pro and anti-restitution factions. So there's a story of how they began making inroads. They were not welcomed with open arms in Düsseldorf, which is sort of ground zero of this crime. The current, and you wade into these waters of who is responsible, and the basic, controversy is over who is responsible now for what happened back then. And the they were not initially welcomed with open arms, but then eventually a curator at the Düsseldorf Stadtmuseum, the city museum, named Susanna Anna, did see the justice in restituting these paintings to the heirs of the gallery owner. So with some successful restitution claims that had happened in the sort of mid 2000s, starting to happen in the mid 2010s, there was this wave of enthusiasm for this kind of topic and issue around Stern, and to the point that they started planning an exhibition to honor him in Dusseldorf. And it was going to be a kind of three-way co-production, this exhibition, as it were, between galleries, the Dusseldorf Gallery and galleries in Montreal and Haifa, Israel, as well. And this thing was in the planning. It involved for a few years. It involved two Canadian curators, one from Concordia, one from the National Gallery, and the museum director herself, also an art historian, Susanna Anna. So this thing was chugging along. And then what happened was a month before it was set to open in February 2018, the mayor at the time of Dusseldorf swooped down from on high, Mayor Thomas Geisel, and canceled the exhibition a month before it was supposed to open. And this caused a huge uproar in the art world, in the Jewish world, in the international press. It was covered in the New York Times and many other places. Ronald Lauder, who was head of the World Jewish Congress at the time and has been a big champion of bringing the issue of restitution to light. He famously is the person who acquired the Woman in Gold, the Klimt painting portrayed in the fiction film of a few years ago, and has in fact a gallery set up in New York, the Noy Gallery, to that style of expressionist art. Anyway. So these are the kind of people who were ruffled, to say the least, by this city mayor's decision. And at the time, he and his administration gave a range of different explanations for why they did it. They alternately said it was because there was an imbalance between the Canadian and German curatorship. It was too Canadian skewed. They said it was inappropriate because of pending restitution claims by the Stern Foundation against the city, even though the Stern Foundation was not involved in curating this exhibition. And at a certain point, they threw their own museum director under the bus. They said it was insufficient planning and scholarship on behalf of Dr. Anna's museum, and she, in fact, has been muzzled from talking about anything Max Stern related ever since, as we see in the film, as she she kind of somewhat absurdly is authorized to talk to me, but not about Max Stern.
Staying 8 feet away from me all the time on camera, that definitely was a bit of a sign. But I love the fact, and I mean, I love that you brought up just sort of the involvement of the city of Dusseldorf, because that's the thing, one of the things that really kind of fascinated me. And I mean, I'm blanking on the gentleman's name, but when you brought in the lawyer for the city and the lawyer who was involved,
Ludwig von Puffendorf.
who has a bad guy name to him, with all respect to the gentleman, it just, you set him up as almost like really very much as almost the film's villain. But as he talks and as the more film goes on, I almost felt myself shrinking in my seat a little bit, going like, "Oh my God, he's making some really good points at the same time." And I mean, this whole thing, it really felt to me like it would have been so easy for you to sort of make this an emotional film, to be like, yes, these works should be restituted, this, that, and the other, but the reality of it, and the sort of the nature of genuinely proving provenance is a nightmare, even under the most organized and best of terms, much less in the rubble of Nazi Germany.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I am glad that that's how it comes off. That was certainly my intention. Now, I mean, there's no doubt that Ludwig von Puffendorf is a gift to the documentary
Yeah.
form. Anybody who says things on camera like they call me an anti-Semite, but I don't let that slow me down, or words to that effect, is is going to grab some eyeballs. He's a performer. He's a lawyer of long standing. He knows what he's doing, and he has long been recognized as a key player. Although this is not a term he would use to describe himself, but basically he's been recognized as a key player in what can fairly be seen as the anti-restitution faction in the German legal and art world. Nevertheless, it was important to me in this film, as it is in all my work, to give everybody a fair shake. I think this is a journalistically based film in the sense that there are no merely emotional claims being made without the opposing side being given a fair chance to respond and make their case. And I agree with you that although my own sympathies may become evident from such choices as inserting Mel Brooks, the producers, into the proceedings, nevertheless. I do think it's not a simple argument. It is a messy issue, and that's part of what attracted to me to it in the beginning. I personally don't see how you could get a feature-length story out of something that is one-sided. Basically, I mean, someone as talented as Michael Moore has proven this wrong, but not many other people have. In other words, I've always eschewed the kind of stories where you know the answer in the first 30 seconds and then you spend the next 88 minutes repeating it in one form or another. I'm more interested in a journey and, frankly, a battle. And this certainly is both of those things.
Well, I mean, I think that's where the parallels between this film and Fakes are so interesting because again, it's it really does put to light uh I mean, I'm looking for the right word, but I mean just sort of the ease of sort of hijacking culture and the ease of hijacking sort of that power therein because I mean as you know spoils obviously can look at sort of the plunder and sort of the taking of value. There is also sort of the taking of cultural status, which has value in and of itself, which goes beyond sort of any kind of monetary number as well.
You mean in terms of what was done to the Jews,
Yeah,
essentially?
exactly.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. It is fascinating to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of this. And one of the historians in the film, I mean, mainly the film, as I try to do, is stocked with, primary actors, as you will, people who are actually involved in the situations or battles that we're recounting, as opposed to secondhand accounts from journalists. But we do have a couple of historians in there briefly who are excellent. One is Frank Chalk from Concordia, and the other is Mark Mazerovsky from the Holocaust Looted Art organization in DC, who makes the point about how, well, both of whom do, of how plunder and genocide worked hand in hand. And when you look at the stages of what went on pre-Holocaust, directly pre-war, you see that uh, um, it is a gradual stripping away of humanity of these citizens. And this is part of what is remarkable and unique, I think, still about the Holocaust is the kind of depth, breadth, and organization in which this was effected by a country against a group of its own citizens during peacetime.
Hmm.
And when one of the memorials that has always struck me, I covered it in my only other film on a Jewish theme was subtly named Kike Like Me from 2007. And in that film, I actually went to Germany for the first time to film and looked at different kinds of memorials that were being done. One of them are these things called Stolpersteiner. They're these brass plates, perhaps you're acquainted with them, in on that top cobblestones, miniature black brass plaques on cobblestones outside the houses formerly occupied by Jewish inhabitants, and it has their names and their dates and the camp at which they perished. And these are all over Germany. I find it insofar as anyway, I find it quite a striking, interesting memorial as such things go. Stolpersteiner means stones that you trip on. And that's, it's something that does kind of make you stop and think. Of course, the more time I spend there, the more I think, gee, that's a nice plaque. What happened to the property? What about the property value, this valuable property in now prime Berlin or prime Düsseldorf? And we're talking about Max Stern's art collection. There's a whole other tale in what happened to his prime real estate in the, Bayen-Bleuer equivalent of
Right.
Düsseldorf that
Right.
was snapped up for a song by the Allianz Insurance Company. Uh, um, anyway, I mean, I guess when you see these things and you see the kind of houses they're in front of in Düsseldorf, to come across them randomly while we're shooting B-roll, you
Mm.
realize how comfortable a number of the Jewish inhabitants were. I don't just mean that they were rich. I mean they were, some of them were well off. I'm sure some of them weren't, but I mean they were just so comfortably integrated into life. And what a shock that would be for people, living in Riverdale today, to suddenly be told, you're not a citizen anymore. You can't do this. You can't do that. I mean, these kind of things, the stages of dehumanization are still so striking and indeed these days so resonant.
Well, and I mean, I can imagine, especially when you're sort of boots on the ground in Dusseldorf and shooting, because I mean, obviously, people know about sort of the broad sweeping horrors of the Holocaust and the Nuremberg trials and sort of the aftermath therein. But what a lot of people maybe don't necessarily understand, especially if you're in Germany, the war is like it's. I mean, I hate to bring up the old Faulty Towers joke, but it's like, and we don't mention Zavol. We don't talk about that.
It is
How
still,
much how much of that is still kind of prevalent,
oh,
especially as you were sort of doing your research and getting into all this?
it's hugely prevalent. I mean, when you think about the history and that every when you look at the footage that we unearthed in this film, and this is not in the end a historical film,
Right.
but we show how history is being weaponized by two feuding factions, which I think was kind of fun and interesting. When I look at the footage that our wonderful archive researcher Aaron Chisholm unearthed, and which our brilliant editor Michael Hannon so wonderfully assembled, you see the huge crowds cheering on Hitler. You see babies being taught to do the salutes. You see stuff of Hitler in Dusseldorf, looking at art. I mean, it's unbelievable the stuff that's out there. And it's a reminder of how integrate of what active participants, how many active participants there were among the German citizenry, to the Nazi project. So it stands to reason that there are many people today, everybody there today has got to have, at least, crazy Uncle Carl or Grandpa Carl, who really was really drinking the Kool-Aid earnestly, if not Uncle Fritz, who went along with it. In their family, and nobody's too keen to talk about that. I can say after having German friends and having been there many many times. Um, However, it doesn't mean it's not to say that the current people are directly responsible for the crimes of the past, but nevertheless. Um, anyway, I actually forgot your question, but I
No,
don't.
but you've answered it though, because it's one of those things where, especially in this day and age, we tend to have a sort of the political mindset of like, oh, if you're not this, you're that, or if you're not that, you're this. And I mean, people could look at this and be sort of see an undercurrent of anti-Semitism, especially with some of the people that maybe you dealt with. But at the same time, there is also that layer of shame as well. And it's one of those things where it's not one or the other. It's a mixture of both.
I'd say they're highly compatible.
Yeah.
But among the nuances that also come up, with dealing with this issue as a current day phenomenon, what do you do with this art legally,
Mm.
morally, and of course those things as this battle as is revealed in the film don't. There's no obvious roadmap for how to deal with it. Every case is its own sort of knife fight. and is fought, fought to the death as such, whether the painting in question is worth €1,000 or a million, or 30 million, as in the case of the woman in gold.
Yeah.
While there were no women in gold in the Stern collections, nevertheless, the lesser value of his lesser old masters is more representative of this scale of Nazi looting that occurred. Because not everybody had as somebody in the film says, not everybody had a Klimt or a Vermeer over the mantelpiece. And the simple another argument that Willie Corta, the Stern researcher, brings up in the film is, so you hear counter arguments running along the lines of, well, should these paintings be taken off the walls of public institutions where the public can enjoy them, and go into the hands of some distant descendant of a Jewish relative who lost it, who really just wants money out of this thing, and really has no connection. To which there were counter arguments in the film, such as, well, if somebody stole your car and you saw them driving down the street, how is it
Don't
different?
worry, it's fine, but it's my car now.
I'm
Yeah.
taking care of it. Lots of people can enjoy it at the vintage show, but anyway, it's a fascinating world. I know I'm biased, but
It really no, but no, you're right though. I mean, and just it's one of those things that I appreciate the reality that you're not able to give audiences an answer on this. If anything, it's a film designed to spark conversation. And I mean, as always, that is the mark of a excellent documentary filmmaker such as yourself. But I mean, Jamie, just again, great to see you, brother. And just again, congrats on the work and thank you so much again for the time. I really appreciate this.
thank you, Dave. Always a pleasure.
You're
Thank
very welcome. All right. Bye, guys.
you. Okay, take care.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.